Okay guys, so I decided to make one more lesson for this chapter just because we need to revise about objects and arrays. And that could be quite simple, but we're going to combine them both. So I think it's quite useful to understand how you can pull data from associative arrays. So those will actually combine objects and arrays all together. So let me get started. So first I'm going to talk about objects. So how would you define object? Simply as object 1 and curly braces. That's what it takes. And then if you want to assign the property, you set dot property and just some string property. Also, you can assign the second method. If I set key to 0, you can assign object 1 and then the square brackets and, for example, property again plus key, and that equals to some string property 1. For methods, you will do object that method equals to function, and I'm simply going to return this function and just as a string. This is a string. Right, so that's very simple. That's why you would do it. And for the object, also the second method for objects, let's call it object 2. Again, curly braces, but we're gonna nest all the properties and values. So let's define name, Greg. Let's put in my name, and method to function. And again, I'm going to return a string. My name is, and simply set to plus this name. Well, you probably notice I'm using keyword this, which representing the object here. Whatever inside the curly braces, it creates its own environment, and that's why you're allowed to use this keyword, which refers to this object too. Perfect. And there's one more method I want you to tell you about it, and it's called singleton. So singleton again is object, for example, 3 equals to new. You have to use the keyword new. I'm gonna call it shape. You can use any word you want. Shape, need to make a constructor for shape, which is function. And inside you can define again name. This time I'm gonna use fill, and this that method, yes, I'm going to use function return string. This time his name is, and this that name. Perfect. So that will be everything what I need you to tell you about the objects. So 3 methods you can assign objects, and let me consult what sort of results we're having for object 1 first, then object 2, but I only call this method, and the same for object 3. So you will see in the console what sort of results we're having from consoling this value. Right, so this is for objects, and now simply about arrays. Arrays are much simpler. They're really simple concepts. So what you're gonna do is assign an array of, for example, fruits, and I'm gonna pick some fruits. So the square braces this time, and I'm gonna put it, for example, apples. Then let's say pears and grapes. Right, so now we've got array and object, but I want to combine them together. So let's say object 2 has new property that actually going to attach this this array. So let me do it straight away. So first one is by assignment. The method is called by assignment, and my object 2 got my fruits, for example, object which is going to be assigned to fruits. So this is one way of assigning, simply as taking the property and assigning to entire array. It's not perfect, you'd still be able to loop it through, but it's an index number, and so 0, 1, 2. But there's one more method which I prefer. You can assign all those values by looping them, but let me show you what I meant. For example, I want to assign one more object for object 2. It's going to be again my fruits, but maybe second, but this time it's going to be empty by default, and I'm going to loop our array. So I'm going to use Angular loop, which is Angular for each, which takes an array. So I can take the object to my fruits, and then takes callback function. Value of the arrays is going to be apples, pears, and grapes value, and then key is the index. Perfect. And inside we're going to do some extra features. So this this array is empty by default. What I'm going to do, I'm going to assign for every key an empty object. What I'm doing this, the reason I'm doing this, because I don't want to just have access to the index. I also want to have meaningful property name of the object. So that will be index, for example, 0, and let's say my favorite fruit. So let me do it straight away as an example. So it'll be my key, and I'm going to have my favorite equals to value. That's the one way. So this way is going to be much more clean and clear, and whoever comes after you is going to see, okay, for example, Greg wants to pick from this array, from fruits array. He's using index, and he says, okay, those are not any fruits, those are my favorite fruits. So that's very meaningful. But also you can assign even like a names array. And inside this, I'm going to, again, Greg, Phil, and for example, Kate. So what I'm going to do this time, I'm going to assign, for example, apples to Greg, pears to Phil, and grapes to Kate. Very simple with this method. All you have to do is to assign new property for this object, which is going to be the name. So I'm going to use names key, and simply we're going to console that object too, so we know what we're doing. Alright, so let me test that in a browser, and then I'm going to explain why this is a better method of assigning array into the object than just to simply place it by assignment. It's better looping through and then assign meaningful names. So let me test that. Refresh the page. And we've got all those methods first. My name is Greg, his name is Phil. That works, that's perfect. And what we have here, so we've got my fruits and simply index 0, 1, 2. Not great. How to access it, just simply my fruit and then got 0, 1, 2. And then got my fruits 2, and again you've got 0, which is good, but then you've got Greg. So Greg likes apples, and my favorite is apples. For next one, you've got my favorite pears, Phil like pears. And then you've got Kate, and my favorite grapes for Kate. And hopefully you understand the meaning why I want what I wanted to explain by assigning additional object. It's just really clean that way. And then in a template, we're going to use, for example, my fruits and the square brackets 0 Greg. So we know we want a value for Greg, not just the my fruit 0, even though it's the same meaning, but this way it's really clean and clear to see what value do we actually access. And whoever comes after you look at your code is going to see, all right, this is very clean and organized way of pulling the data, because it's very meaningful. And data and all of the names for variables always supposed to be meaningful. Otherwise, it's just not necessarily that easy to understand. If you're going to come back to this code in a month time, you're not probably going to remember what you just coded because you didn't use meaningful names. So that sums up this chapter. In next lesson, we're going to use this this knowledge to use the application process and assign all the users to a database. So thank you very much. Stay tuned.